you do not feel self-authorized to live your life on your terms, then your definition of success is always going to revolve around checking boxes on someone else's list. It's not enough to just be an architect, a creative professional. The real question is, what are you doing? How are you making an impact if you don't know how to answer that question, or you feel too overwhelmed, stressed out, or burned out to even think about it? I'll help you get beyond the status quo trap in our profession to get inspired again. If you're ready, let's get architecting. Hey, bright lights, welcome back to Architecting. Today, I am going to talk a little bit about an issue I know is a screaming demon for anyone in a creative profession. And that is the idea of validation. And that's because there is no right answer in any kind of creative work. There's a solution, maybe, but there's never the solution. You could give the exact same problem to 10 different architects and have 10 different equally good solutions come up. Which one you feel might be better might just be based on your own personal bias as that person making the evaluation. What are your priorities? What did you value? And if you took those 10 different solutions to the same problem and you allowed 10 different people to pick their favorite, it's highly likely that there would be multiple favorites in the group, because each person who'd be making a choice would have different reasons to value different parts of each design solution. This is a bigger dilemma than you might think, because it means we are constantly looking for signs that we have the right answer. I've done some great episodes on this topic, including one that looks at validation as an addiction, because when we are looking for approval, we are not tapped into our own intuition. We are not thinking about being discerning about what we want, about what we value. We are only looking externally. But I'm going to take care of you here. And I don't just want you to sit there going, ugh, I do that. Well, I don't know. Well, how do I fix it? I always want to give you actionable steps, which is why today we are talking about something called self-authorization. Now, this goes back to the work of Carl Jung, a very famous psychotherapist. He's one of the forefathers of modern psychology. And one of the things that he looked at was something called individuation, which is really the process of how we get to ourselves. It is about feeling confident in yourself as an individual person, feeling that you are actualized as a person and that you have agency, that you can know your own mind, that you can be decisive and confident, and that you do not take failure as a sign that you should give up. You see failure as a learning experience. There's resiliency there because, newsflash, you are going to encounter unpleasant things, terrible things, tragic things. This is part of life. In your career, you are going to encounter roadblocks. You are going to encounter pitfalls and setbacks. But if you can learn from those experiences, even if they're the result of someone else's bad behavior, you can still pivot. You can still course correct, keep going, keep moving, keep evolving, which as a creative person is really important. The opposite of creativity is stress, burnout, overwhelm. Everything that happens inside your body, your mind, when you feel that way is robbing you of the resources you need to be creative. it is counterproductive. If you do not feel self-authorized to live your life on your terms, then your definition of success is always going to revolve around checking boxes on someone else's list. Their list is for them. It may or may not be what's right for you. It may or may not make you happy. You may be successful on paper. You may have a string of accomplishments associated with your career, but you won't feel good about it. On the outside, you might even look really confident. You might have a leadership role, but you won't feel grounded and self-assured in that role. Instead, you will always be in a stress response, looking to protect, defend, or prove yourself in order to feel good. No matter how big of a win you have, whether it is a major project that you brought in, a big career milestone, an award that you win, you will never feel good enough. You will always be chasing the next thing. And that is where self-authorization comes in. When you feel secure in yourself, you are going to attract people that resonate with you. That means that instead of struggling against issues you might be having with a coworker or a boss or a client, you are going to stop being available for people to treat you in a way that brings out every single insecurity and doubt you have, and start being available to be treated according to what you want to experience. When you experience individuation, it means that you can be authentic. That's when you experience the thing that I am such champion for here in our architecting community, which is success on your terms, because you got the clarity, you got the discernment. You know who you are, you know what you can do, you know where you want to grow and develop, you know what skills you want to cultivate and which ones you've mastered. And so you show up calm, confident, happy, sure of where you are and what you're doing, able to have clear boundaries while still creating psychological safety for others, able to meet resistance with curiosity, not with defensive behavior, because you don't care anymore about whether or not somebody agrees with you or is willing to validate you. You are validated within yourself. That is some of the most powerful work you can do for your life as well as your career. Get to that state of self-authorization. I like to say better to ask forgiveness than permission, and I really mean it when I say that. When you ask somebody else for permission, you are giving them control. You are relinquishing your own power, your own agency. You're putting your destiny, even if it is small stakes, in their hands and taking it out of your hands. And there's all kinds of reasons they could say no. Out of malice or jealousy, sure, but they can also say no because they weren't prepared for your request, or they don't personally feel comfortable. It's not something they would want to do, so they don't know how to respond to you. They may be afraid of things that you aren't. They may be fearful of issues that you're willing to take a risk on. And so it's easy for them to throw up all kinds of red flags and say, I don't know about that, or have you really thought about this or that, or what if you fail? And that's them projecting their own fears onto you. They could also be frozen because what you're asking for isn't fitting with what they had in mind or they had hoped you would be doing, and they don't even know how to answer that. There's never been a role like that in the company, or nobody's ever taken on the study of an issue like that. And so they don't know what to do with it. They also may be feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and burned out. And so it's easier to just be the deer in the headlight and ignore or sit on a response instead of getting back to you. When we ask instead of taking action, what ends up happening is we either get shot down, we get forbidden, or we get delayed. None of those are helpful. When we authorize ourselves, on the other hand, we can have real forward movement and momentum. Now, I'm not saying break the laws, break the rules. I am saying take deliberate action. Don't always wait for somebody else to tell you that it's okay before you make a move. What is this going to do? Well, you are not available to be misunderstood, to be underestimated. And these were things I have to say I personally struggled with all the time in the early years of my career. And I certainly struggled with it going through grade school and high school. I never felt truly understood by anyone. I always felt like I was simultaneously too much and not enough. I always felt like wherever I wasn't good enough because I wasn't like most other people, which I'm not. And I've gotten more comfortable with that over the years. But because of that, I left the door open for people who were going to underestimate me, deliberately misunderstand me, mistreat me, judge me unfairly because I wasn't like them, so they felt the need to make me wrong. I have to tell this story about a boss and me where when my attitude shifted, everything else shifted. So even though I felt like we got along and I felt like he was supportive and he respected me, out of left field, every once in a while would burble up this criticism. And the criticism always felt kind of blindsidey. It was as if my deepest vulnerabilities were being manipulated to make me wrong in a situation. It always happened not in the moment when you could be discussing the specifics of who did what and how everybody in the situation and the dynamics of it played out. It would always happen much later, and it would be, I've heard this or that, or people are telling me this or that. And my reaction at the time, because I was still needing the validation, was to immediately go into a spiral of anger, guilt, and shame, to be defensive. My mind would be going a million miles an hour. Oh my God, what did I do? How can I fix this? Don't react, keep your face calm. When I really wanted to run out of the room with tears in my eyes because I was so devastated that once again, I got it wrong somehow, despite my best intentions, despite the fact that I worked really, really hard. Somehow, some way, I had screwed something up. I had offended somebody, not because I had deliberately attacked them, but just being me was somehow offensive. I'd even notice what was wrong with that feedback. You don't hoard a problem until you can use it as leverage. That's not effective leadership or communication. But I didn't think to question that because I was an accomplice in making myself wrong because I needed to be seen as doing the right thing, meeting expectations, so much so that I didn't see how other people weren't meeting expectations. And this would keep happening to the point where I really dreaded one-on-one meetings with this person. It was always this sense of, oh no, what am I going to hear? And I robbed myself from getting good feedback because when we did have one-on-one meetings, I would try to distract and deflect by having this agenda of items to talk about that I knew would be neutral so that we could avoid having hard conversations. It wasn't easy. This was a period of years that this went on. But as I have done more and more work on myself, and I won't say I still don't have those moments, I absolutely do. Doing the work is not about never having vulnerabilities or weaknesses or failings. It's really about recognizing what is and isn't your fault, what is and isn't yours to take on. It is about catching yourself sooner so that you can reset back to your authentic self instead of allowing somebody else to project on to you. And I noticed that the more I developed this, that the dynamic of my relationship changed. These kinds of issues stopped coming up because I was no longer available. I was no longer a match for them because I had really let go of the need for validation. I had stopped needing to prove myself or to defend myself. This also happened in my personal life. As many of you know, my ex-husband really struggled with addictions and mental illness. And this, more than anything else, led to our marriage just not working out. I held on for way too long because I didn't want to be the person who failed at marriage. Didn't want to let go. I wanted to fix it. I wanted to repair it. I wanted to make it work. I wanted him to be happy so I could be happy. Honestly, things had reached a point where that wasn't possible, and we can't control other people's decisions or other people's feelings. We can only control how we choose to respond to them and whether we choose to interact with them at all. I would notice that we would fight, obviously, a whole lot more, and that when we would fight, he would hurl crazy insults at me, things that were so crazy that there was no way I could really be hurt by them or believe them. I felt like I had to prove him wrong, and I would have my case by case, point by point on all the reasons he was wrong in whatever he was saying. But as I reached the point that I could see that this marriage was no longer a positive thing in anybody's life. It was a toxic relationship and it needed to end. Instead of arguing and proving and defending, I just realized that all truths are true. And my answer back to him when he would try to pick a fight and say something insulting was, well, if you're that unhappy with me, why don't you leave? And I could only say that because I was no longer caught up in the need for validation. It was okay for me at that point to let that relationship go and to respond, not react, to be able to say, if this isn't a match, then it shouldn't. That's the only thing that could happen. That's the only right thing to do, and to be okay with that. Because when we let go of that need for validation, when we are in that state of self-authorization, when we are authentic, when we are no longer a match for being projected onto by others or being coerced by others or judging our happiness by what other people value or want for themselves, we are set free. Not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. That is the biggest realization that I have come to in the last 10 years, is that it's okay that not everybody likes you, that not everybody's happy with you. You're not for everyone, and it doesn't make them bad or wrong. It just means that they're not a match for you. When you can be your authentic self, unapologetically, when you can be in your own energy, clear, clean energy, you won't care. What will start to happen is that you will begin to attract to you people who resonate with who you are. And you won't be too much and you won't be not enough. It's said that you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, and that is true in any kind of relationship, whether it is a family relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship, a business relationship. You have to be yourself in order to connect with the people who are a match for you. And then and only then can you truly be content, successful, supported, network, building your social resiliency that's coming from having real and authentic connections to other people. Remember that you magnetize to you the energy that you put out. It is important not to go around seeking approval from others, but instead to tune in, to take aligned action with your authentic interests, to always be willing to change and adapt and evolve and to grow, to take on new things in that place and space. The stress, the overwhelm, the burnout, there's no room for them anymore because you're simply not available to give your time or your energy to situations that deplete you. Instead, you are only available to put them in situations that feed you. And that means you will encounter fewer setbacks. The ones you do will be less detrimental to your state of mind, physical health, and well-being. And you will also begin to magnetize to you people who see you, truly value you, and truly want to co-create with you. That's the foundation. That's how we escape the validation trap. And that's how we go on to live our best lives as creative professionals. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you want even more content, head on over to architectingpodcast.com and subscribe to my newsletter and get some great free downloads while you're there. Be sure to follow me on social media. On Instagram at Architecting Podcast, Facebook and LinkedIn pages are Architecting, and the YouTube channel Architecting Podcast. Stay inspired.